So next we'll discuss about telling differences and eliminating parallels. What are these things? In many respects, design thinking theory may be true for trivial reasons, right? Because it serves as a scheme according to which practitioners proceed, and truth does not suffice. Right? Many times, even if the theory is true, right? Just because theory is true, we cannot proceed. Okay, only being true is not the trivial solution, right? So, for example, considering the two claims, the theory is true and the theory is useful, right? Even though the theory is true, being usefulness is the more important thing. Conventionally, scientists ask whether claim is maintainable. Right? Theory is always, is it possible to have some theory to be successive, right? If you have some hypothesis, you cannot make that hypothesis to be true all the time. Or next, the theory is useful. Second claim, which is seen to be the more fundamental, being usefulness rather than being true is the more fundamental thing. That means depending on the situation, we must ask. Right? Then next step is specifying the hypothesis. In design thinking, as there is no written out axiomatic system in design thinking that specifies crucial assumptions one after the other. It is the researcher's first job to pin down crucial beliefs in the field. In the design thinking, so we don't have a written theorems or axioms, right, which are true at all the situations. Before depending on the specific task, it is the job of the researcher to pin down the crucial assumptions. A design solution S1 is found to be or considered more innovative and effective than a solution S2 if the solution S1 is more unusual as well as more useful than S2. So therefore here also being usefulness is the major requirement, right, for considering a problem to be innovative. Right? So even though you have a theory and a problem is well understood, you need to conduct experiments. So why we need to conduct the experiments? Okay, which is most common in most of the product developments. As we have formulated the preliminary consideration, a choice needs to be made as to how the subject matter shall be tackled empirically. In principle, two alternatives are available. Many times, in many things, we don't get a fixed rule or theory. Many things are not understood, but still, we need to develop a empirical idea to tackle a problem. Investigations can be experimental or non-experimental. Both approaches have their advantages as well as their disadvantages. The experimental method has been devised to fade out or oppress all the factors potentially relevant to an outcome except for those factors whose influence are to be investigated. Many times in the experiment, okay, you can oppress or you can fade out all the factors which are potentially relevant to an outcome except for those factors whose influences are to be investigated. You can only select some of the factors. Okay, you can concentrate only on some of the factors. In non-experimental studies, on the other hand, one may explore all the facets of real-life situations in their full, moving, buzzing mix-up. In non-experimental studies, where which is the alternative way to the experimental studies, where one might observe the real situations and observe the real situation instead of conducting the experiment in the lab. Right? Thus, you may come to consider aspects you would never have thought about in your office armchair, extrapolating from the data hypothesis or as to how they might be interrelated, yet whether those putative causal relations truly exist, one cannot really tell. So, this is why experiments are required. They really tell you some unexpected aspects of a problem, right? And that will also help you to extrapolate the hypothesis, how the hypothesis various parameters are interrelated. So here the challenge, what is the challenge here in design thinking to make it more practicable is that in every experiment a setup requires thorough considerations as it set the upper limit of what can be found out. Setup required depending on the parameters to be measured or depending on the required level of accuracy. So you need to make the setup. Right? In addition to this one, the scope of the challenge should be somewhat grand or at least not minute. So you must have a sufficiently large scope. Many times, you after conducting the experiment, if you forgot to note down certain readings, then again you need to repeat the experiment only for that type of the information. This experimental setup should be open enough so that it would be possible to come up with a technical or a social solution or an artistic or political or a other type of the solutions. Right? It should be open for different possible types of the solution. Solution may come in from any directions. A related demand is that there should be the possibility of using knowledge from diverse fields. Right? You need to consider the knowledge from different fields like technical or social situation or in artistic point of view or political point of view. Next comes the question of operationalization. So where each team will present suggestion regarding the problem situation and what is to be done so that reliable measure results, that is estimates of the unusualness of each solution. Right? So different teams may suggest different ideas or different solutions, and even you need to contemplate on the unusualness of each solution. When invoking numbers in everyday life, we often ask questions about concrete things, but some of the factors of interest are quite abstract. This does not make a difference for the procedure of assessing or measuring those factors. When you want to measure the quality of something, we try to quantify them by asking concrete questions: how many, how much, how exactly. But always it is not possible to get the concrete answer. Sometimes the answers are abstract. Right? If somebody asks what is the taste of the milk or what is the taste of the juice being made, right? You may say it is sweeter or sweetest or some different taste you can tell. Right? But you cannot actually measure them. In such cases, in order to measure the abstract information factors, you need to devise a procedure to make it operationalization. So here your task is to find concrete entities that one can look at to arrive at reasonable statements about the abstract notion of interest. For example, we can ask the consumer to rate it on a scale of 10. Taste is good or bad. Whether it is good or bad. Right? Therefore, in the setup of experiment, the operationalization is a crucial step. If one's operationalization is unconvincing, one's data will fail to bear on the issue that one sets out to investigate. If this operationalization process is not properly planned, if it is not convincing, one's data may fail to bear on the issue that one sets out to investigation. Now we'll discuss about the presentation signers across the globe with respect to different aspects like social and institutional environment, national, corporate and disciplinary culture, design thinking and practice. With respect to these aspects, we'll understand the presentation signers across the globe. So, with respect to national culture and design practice, innovation management in Germany and China, if you consider, German innovation activities were more clearly divided. They are sequential and scheduled, while the Chinese preferred to have overlapping activities. Right? Each innovation activity, the unique activities are planned in Germans, whereas in Chinese, if you observe, many of the innovations they found to be overlapping in nature, common parameters you may observe. And the presence of cultural difference in new product development, suggesting formality in US firms is observed, and the holistic approach is observed in Japan. Right? Cultural differences and formality are the major factors in US firms, whereas holistic completeness is the approach which is being followed in Japan. China may have difficulty incorporating the voice of the customer because of their Confucian value for stability over change and may adhere more strictly to supervision and rules. In China, rules are more stringent because of the influence of the Confucian values. Right? They prefer stability over change. Right? So, whereas in India, Bollywood method is more suited for Indian market. Right? Even you might have seen many ads and all. Right? So, emotional contents are the most common thing in ads and all. Dramatic, they are dramatic. Right? So, this is what Indians would like. Right? Therefore, in all the ads, what you make, storyline as a means of Bollywood storyline is a means for attracting Indians. With respect to culture and design, so this includes the role of institutional context, that is, client expectations, or what are the different attitudes of the clients towards creativity, or attitude of the people towards creativity, and different interaction norms within professions, different ways of using prototypes and ecologies around design education. And what are the client expectations with respect to culture and design, particularly at design consultancies, which were described as heavily influencing the types of prototyping, concept generation, and storytelling processes followed by designers in different regions. Right? Design consultancies, they were heavily influenced by the client expectations regarding the type of the prototyping or concept generation and storytelling processes followed by designers in different regions. Right? So these are the input from the clients, these are the expectations from the clients in design consultancies. Clients have frames that determine their expectations for what the designer should deliver, how they should behave, and of their own role in the process. These frames then affect the way in which design is interpreted and enacted. Also, clients have some mindset, some expectations regarding the functionality of the product or the appearance outlook of the product. All these things needs to be considered. So, in designing the final product. And regarding creativity, Western designs were sometimes seen as being radical and designing products that couldn't easily be manufactured or were only appropriate for a niche market. They were just too out there, right? So, more complicated products they design Western peoples. Whereas in Asia, as we mentioned in China itself, right? It is found that similar products available in the market, many products. Generally, Asian mentality because of the crowd, it is that they just want to fit in the crowd. They don't want to be innovative. While the North American and perhaps the European notion of creativity is to stretch beyond what is expected or known. Asian notions of creation design valued harmony with existing products. North American, they wanted to do something already beyond already existing, whereas Asians, they wanted harmony between products, right? You will get some product 10,000 in a good mall, or a similar product at very cheaper rate 1,000 or 2,000 you can get in footpaths in India, in Asian countries, right? So Asian market has to serve very diversified peoples, right? This is the important aspects. The last aspect in this chapter is more minimum viable product or prototyping, right? A prototype is the theory behind your product made into form. And what is prototype? It is the theory behind your product. Instead of having a vague idea in your mind which you want to build, you need to create a prototype to make it tangible. The size of the prototype may vary, and also depending on the time and effort you want to put to build the prototype. You can even make an AutoCAD drawing or SketchUp using Google SketchUp or any other drawing tool, or you can even manually draw the drawing on the paper. Or sometimes it can be of more functional and interactive. So, benefits of making prototype are that it helps you to communicate with your design and engineering teams. You need to show them what to build. You have to show your team what you want to build. Think of it as the packaging of an empty box. It shows you what's inside and what it looks like, but there is currently nothing going to underneath. In case of package, if you see the package, you must understand that what is inside. That is what called prototype. So what we can expect from the final product. So that has to be indicated by the prototype. So depending on your skill level, you can make the prototype complicated or simple one. So different types of the prototypes are paper sketches or digital prototypes, where you can use the softwares and other things. Whereas if you consider minimum viable product, what is minimum viable product? It is the bare minimum version of your product that still solve the problem for your customer. For example, if you consider a problem of transportation from point A to point B, there are various options are available. At the first instance itself, you will not design a Tesla car, right? You may start with a skateboard or a scooter, and then you get the feedback from the user. User may want it to be something like motorized. Then you fix a motor to the your product, right? And some people, even if the client, if he user, if he wants some entertainment, like in cars, right? You can fix the audio and video devices. Right? So this is called minimum viable product. It is having a bare minimum features. So these are some of the examples of minimum viable product, like Groupon. So it's a online trading platform in America. Airbed and breakfast. So it started from 3 guests to now it is having a 400 million people. Dropbox, initially when it started, the idea was not there. Okay, Dropbox is a product similar to our Google Drive or OneDrive, right? And Redbus, it was initially started as a student project, and then it is implemented to the market to serve the customers. The difference between prototype and MEs we can understand with respect to scope, right? Scope of the prototype is to make you understand the concept or give idea about the final outcome of the product, whereas the minimum viable product is having a minimum features. Commitment of a prototype is to show the final output of a product, what intended idea of a product. Okay, that is the commitment of prototype, is only that much. Whereas the minimum viable product, okay, the scope, the commitment of minimum viable product is to provide bare minimum facilities to the user, whereas the audience for prototype is the either the sponsor or you or the larger market. You can present the prototype before bringing it into the market, whereas the minimum viable product, right, it only during the initial stage only small group of the customers, right? So the tips for building prototype or MVP is that you need to stay consumer or customer focused. You need to take the feedback from the customer, and you must go on building the prototype or minimum viable product. And also it must be data driven. If you want to build a prototype or MVP, you must understand what type of the data you want to collect, either from the prototype or MVP, which will help you later in development and for future releases, right? And next is the only thing waiting kill your darlings, right? You might think that your product is very good, excellent, right? It not only it is sufficient for a product to look good for you, but it is also look good for a customer, right? You need to take the feedback from the consumers or from experts or different organizations, and just build the thing instead of going for over perfecting your prototype. You release the prototype to the market so that people can see and give their feedback to your prototype. So these are some of the suggested learning resources which you may refer, and these are the web resources which have been used to prepare this source material.